first of all, it's good to see you guys. I mean, right? Live and in person instead of through a computer or through Zoom, right? So it's good. It's good to be back here at Cross Country Mortgage Campus, preparing for the upcoming season. We're super excited to have our fans, back in the stands for the first time in a year. They bring a special kind of energy for really our players and really everybody in the organization. I think we all know we have the best fans in the NFL, and we're excited to welcome them back this afternoon. I actually want to start by saying how proud I am of our organization for really navigating, everything through the pandemic. We all realize that, it's not over, but we do see a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. And a lot of people have contributed to making this a good environment for our players, our coaches, our staff, fans to come back to our facilities. So we're excited about that. I think a lot of people have been involved in making sure that the right information is out there regarding the vaccines. 100% of our coaches and support staff are vaccinated, and over 90% of our players are fully vaccinated, or finishing up the last stages of the process. So we're excited to be out here, get going over the next couple weeks as we prepare for the season. And with that, I'll open up for questions.
Let's start with Bob Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you bring him on?
Yeah. So Tony, Bob is someone that I have had a lot of respect for throughout the past few years, really since his time as director of pro for the Patriots, and then obviously with his time in Detroit. The former general manager's perspective is one that I very much value. Right, we've had Ryan here twice, and he's been an incredible resource for me. And with Bob, everything that he's done across football operations, everything that he's seen in the general manager's seat with Detroit, I really value his expertise, because the reality of it is, yes, I've been a year on the job, but there are still some things that are new situations or things that are going to be new for me in the next few years. And to have someone and have multiple people now that can provide a little bit of a roadmap in that regard, proves to be incredibly valuable.
So what has he told you about the Baker Mayfield contract?
I should have known that one was coming. Listen.
Give me an
No. Listen. I know that. Understand the question for all of our guys. I think you guys know at this point that with contracts and personal situations, I don't think this is the most appropriate setting. But in regards to Baker, good player, even better person. Can't have enough of people in our locker room that embody those two characteristics on our team.
That being said, earlier this year you referred to Myles Garrett last year.
Mm-hmm.
You got that done before training camp.
Mm-hmm.
Does this mean that something can still be done or will not be done?
Yeah, each situation is unique. I wouldn't read anything into it either way without going into specifics for any individual, but I wouldn't read anything into timing for any player.
Sorry.
Yeah, sure, go ahead, Zach.
We've talked a lot to Baker and Kevin
Mm-hmm.
about continuity and what
Mm-hmm.
it means out here for early in camp. What does continuity mean to your staff right now?
Yeah, I think that, specific to, the offensive side of the ball, we are in a bit of a unique situation where we do return a lot of our guys from last year. I think when we talked after the season, I mentioned that typically a third of, an NFL roster turns over in a given offseason. So it is somewhat rare to keep an entire side of the ball intact. We do think that, there's a platform for growth, for that unit, and we're certainly excited for all of our guys to enter the second consecutive year of the same system. So we do look forward to people taking a step forward.
What's it mean to the scouts and to what you guys do as far as adding players, evaluating those
Mm-hmm.
things?
Yeah, I think it's it's why we got in the business. Like, it's the biggest thing that we do, and I know that we have a personnel department that takes an enormous amount of pride in terms of bringing the most talented individuals and people that fit our smart, tough, accountable mold, ultimately with the goal of putting together the best team possible.
Are you more selective now, and when you go after players, because when you're 3-13 or whatever, you probably just go for anybody who can breathe.
No, I would tell you that you can never have enough talent, because whether it's through changes for players throughout their career, injuries, you name it, kind of your needs today aren't necessarily your needs tomorrow. So for us, I don't think the approach really changes based on where we are with our team's life cycle, we're always looking for good players and good people.
And, Andrew, generally speaking, not talking about a specific player, but what's your approach on negotiating extensions, particularly off rookie deals, like into the season? Does it matter for you, or?
Yeah, for us, we're not that dogmatic in any particular philosophy in that regard. So I wouldn't read anything into timing.
We know that there's an advantage in building a team while the quarterback is still under his rookie contract. Grigson now and Quinn have been in other situations. Does the GM's job get tougher when the quarterback's in that $100+ million?
Yeah, it does present some unique challenges. I would hesitate to say that the job gets tougher because we fully believe that you can build a championship team whether a quarterback's on a rookie deal or build a championship team whether a quarterback's on a veteran deal. So it does create different trade-offs, but no different than any high-priced player. So
Andrew, when guys who are eligible for extensions know they are, and there's a lot of discussion about it, at least outside, is there any danger in hard feelings if something doesn't get done when they're hopeful that it does?
I think it probably depends a little bit on the individual and the communication between team and player. I think you've probably seen it both ways through different examples throughout the league. It's one thing that we certainly try to do our best to communicate with all of our guys, whether it's a contract situation or not. But we certainly understand that sensitivity.
Andrew, I'll acknowledge this is a tricky subject, but when you look at the bottom of a roster and you're churning it and with vaccination statuses, all of that, how do you balance a potential free agent's vaccination status when you're making decisions?
Honestly, what I am focused on with roster decisions is how players produce between the white lines and how well they conduct themselves as professionals outside the white lines. That's it. So.
And as far as like bringing someone in.
Same thing. How they are, on the field, and then how they conduct themselves away from the building.
Now that there are all these contract websites, everyone knows what all your contract situations are. And the fact is that you preserved over $20 million in salary cap room, which is more than a rainy day fund. So obviously there was an intent there to get something done somewhere before the end of this year.
I think for us, I think there's something I've tried to communicate before that. Part of my job is to have a little bit of a foot in the present and a little bit of a foot in the future because, there is certainly this year's team, but also making sure that, we're both managing the roster and managing our resources, whether that's picks or dollars, in a manner that allows us to have sustained success.
Off of that, injuries have been tough with the pandemic, with the salary cap going down. Potentially it's going to jump up. Were there any challenges this offseason?
I'd say over the past 18 months, it's definitely played a factor into our planning. The reality of it is the cap went down almost $18 million this past year, and even moving forward, it's probably going to be $30 million less than everybody projected about a year and a half ago. So that does create some changes in terms of how you think about longer term roster planning, but none of those challenges are insurmountable.
Andrew, there's a lot of talk about Baker being in the same system with the same coach for the first time in his NFL career. What have you noticed from him early on in this camp, and you think that familiarity is already kind of showing up?
Yeah, I think Baker has entered, with a phenomenal mindset, a ton of comfort. I know we're all very excited, for him to have a bit of stability because it's probably like all of us in our jobs, right? Where if you're doing something repetitively or you have a little bit of a foundation from prior experience, it just makes you that much more comfortable. And I think that's something that we certainly notice with him at these early stages.
Always a confident guy, but have you noticed a different level there and maybe taking ownership of the offense?
Yeah, I'll let Baker speak to that. Like as you mentioned, Nate, like he is a super confident guy, and we think he's in a great spot.
You mentioned sustained success, and I know that's your goal, but there are windows of opportunity. Do you feel you're in a shortened window with this team, with the two receivers and their situations, and Hunt and Chubb?
I don't necessarily think that's the case. At the end of the day, like our job as a front office is to make sure that we can, be as competitive as possible in the present year and competitive as often as possible over time. So, I I don't know that I view that we're in any type of unique circumstance in that regard, Tony. But it's obviously something that we're mindful of.
Andrew, what's the challenge is you're looking at today, you're looking at tomorrow, and you're trying to get the team to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not middle of the road, it's a playoff team. Expectations this year obviously are really high, but just from your perspective, sitting in the GM chair, what's it take for the team to get to that championship level beyond just being a good quality playoff team?
Yeah, I don't know that I have a direct answer for that, Daryl. Like, I think honestly, as long as our guys are, working hard with their staff, really focusing on what they can control and improving every day, like, I think we'll look up and be in a really good spot. I think we have the right individuals in this locker room. I know that we have the right individuals on the sideline, and all we're going to do is put our head down and work, and we'll figure it out from there.
And what impact can Odell have in terms of the ceiling this offense can reach, maximizing its potential?
Yeah, Odell's a dynamic player, and he adds a dimension to our offense when he's on the field. We're obviously looking forward to his return this season. I forgot to answer the question earlier. Like, we want as many talented individuals as possible, and I think Odell's one of the more talented players at the position in the league.
You've been around long enough to know that when a rookie misses time in his first training camp, he's playing uphill the rest of the camp. So what do you have to say about JOK's start to his first camp?
Yeah, it's less than ideal for really any player to miss the beginning of camp. But you're right, Tony, particularly a first-year player. That being said, between the work that Tarv, Ben Bloom, Jeremiah did this spring, and how engaged he's been in the meetings and virtual walkthroughs through this point, I know he's doing everything in his power to make sure that he doesn't fall behind. So, look, it's less than ideal. It's a little bit of adversity, but it's also not a death sentence.
Andrew, do you ever watch practice and wonder how you get Donovan Peoples-Jones in the 6th round?
We're pleased with Donovan's progress. Obviously, he played an important role for us at the end of last year, and we're looking forward to continued growth. He's coming in great shape, and we'll see kind of how everything shakes out over the course of camp.
Let me ask you about another 6th rounder, Felton. 2 days, 2 positions. What is he to you?
Yeah, I think one of the things that was attractive to us with Dimitri when we drafted him is just his versatility. We do view his primary position at running back, but his ability to actually have legitimate position flex and create mismatches is something that we value, and he's proven really since he's got drafted just honestly how smart he is, because that's a really hard thing to do for any player, let alone a first-year player learning a new system. So it's a credit to him, and we're looking forward to seeing how he progresses throughout camp.
So Andrew, speaking of just following up on Baker and going in this same system with Kevin, would you like more games to evaluate, or do you think you have enough information when you're thinking about the contract extension question?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we feel really good with Baker's progress. He's made a ton of growth, both on and off the field. We're looking forward to having another fantastic season.
With Jordan Elliott and Jacob Phillips, they played a little bit as a rookie, but not a ton. Do you feel like you know what you have in those 2 guys, or kind of still a mystery?
I think with all young players, in particular first-year players, you see the biggest growth from rookie year to second year. And as really not just specific to Jacob and Jordan, but all of our rookies during that class, as they now have their sea legs and know what to expect, and grow into bigger roles, whether it's on offense or defense, we really do expect all of our guys to take a step forward.
Some teams go through kickers every year and it doesn't affect them, but you're a unique venue at First Energy Stadium. It takes a couple of years to learn how to kick there.
Yeah, that's true.
With that in mind, what did you make of Harky's day yesterday?
Yeah, I'm not overly concerned with Cody. I mean, he has a long track record through 2 stints here of doing a nice job in situations that matter. He missed a couple kicks yesterday. We all have off days, but I'm not. I don't think we need to over-evaluate or over-scrutinize him.
Stabilize that underrated position.
I think everybody wants a stable, good kicker, and I think Cody proved that for us last year.
How about Chris Hubbard? And he's the guy that we always talk about Odell coming back, but that's a pretty serious injury
Mhm.
he had. What do you have to say about, and he's out here?
Yeah, I mean, I think he really worked his tail off in rehab to get back. I thought our medical staff did a phenomenal job with him this year. And honestly, he looks healthy. He's moving great. We expect him to play well.
Did you think Odell would be running around and making the cuts he's making at this
Yeah,
point?
like I mean, you hear a lot of, hey, this guy looks great coming off of an injury, and Odell, like honestly, he's like a freak of nature sometimes. It really is amazing the amount of work that he put in and where he is today, and that's a huge credit to really his focus and dedication over the offseason.
If you watched him, you wouldn't know that he had
Yeah.
the injury. Yeah, how do you balance balance cutting him loose because he looks like he can play versus sticking to the plan of really trying to manage expectations of him going into the season?
That's pretty easy for us just because we really do defer to the the expertise of our medical and performance staff. That's something that we will listen to the docs, we will listen to the trainers, we will listen to, like I said, the performance staff, and go by their data, their recommendation, because the last thing we want to do with any player coming back from injury is load them too quickly and then ultimately have them have a setback. So that'll be pretty easy for us.
Hey, Andrew, with your two new ends, Jadavian and Tech, obviously you'd gone after them or pursued them previously. I'm just kind of curious, how do you balance liking them a couple years ago versus kind of continuing to evaluate them and say, okay, they're worth this right now?
Yeah, so any player, whether it's own roster or across the league, we evaluate within the context of the present year, certainly taking into account some history, but players do change over time. So with any acquisition, it's not this, hey, we like this guy 3, 4, 5 years ago. It's with all the present day production talent, you name it, factor involved. And we obviously like both those guys, acquired both those guys, and think that they have strong roles to play for our.
Do you feel like that's something that maybe some scouts can fall into? I love the guy at point X.
I think it could happen to any any scout. Like I wouldn't say that that's something that I haven't seen before throughout my career. But we do try and make sure that we do everything possible to make sure that we can eliminate blind spots within our evaluation process.
Andrew, I'm sorry, back to Baker for a second. You talked about his progress and maturity and all that on and off the field. For you, what's the next step for him?
Honestly, just continue to work with Kevin, the offensive staff, continue to gain mastery of the offensive system, gain more comfort into it, and honestly, like all he needs to do is work, perform. Like he's gonna be fine.
Andrew, when we talk about stability around Baker, we don't often talk about Case Keenum. He's back here for a second. What has he meant to Baker's development?
Yeah,
kind of installing this offense.
I think Case, it really has played a strong role. Number one, like we brought Case here because he's a good player, right? Like we feel very good if heaven forbid something were to happen to Baker, that Case could step in and get the job done. But obviously his intimate knowledge of the offense, the amount of organizations that he's played in, and just like his whole history in the league. Honestly, it's almost a little bit like when I was talking about Bob Quinn a little bit earlier, can provide a little bit of a professional roadmap at certain critical points. I think Case can serve that or has been able to serve that for Baker throughout the past year.
You didn't have to cross this bridge last year, but when it comes to preseason games, do you have an input with the coach as to how much play time regulars get?
That ultimately is Kevin's decision. It's something that with every big decision or even minor decision, we stay in pretty good communication. But I have total trust in Kevin, our coaching staff. That's their domain, that's their expertise, and they'll make the best decision to get the team prepared to play in September.
Couple more. Last year, COVID really hit on the field. COVID affected the team. Everyone was following the same protocols last year. This year, the rules are separate: vaccinated versus unvaccinated. Is that a concern, though, a little bit, that there are two layers of protocols based on status?
Not really. I mean, it's really not an issue that we're really looking to have divide our team. Like there are strong protocols in place for people who choose to be vaccinated and those who choose not to be. We'll strictly comply to both, and ultimately it's a personal choice for individuals. So that's not something that we're really focused on. I think our team's in a really good spot in terms of coming together and bonding and bracing the work that we need to do to be ready for our season opener.
I guess I'm thinking more towards like the scientific aspect, 'cause it seems like every day a new piece of information comes out, especially with the Delta variant that everyone's talking about, stuff like that. So I guess that's where I'm getting at, is that,
Got it.
not everybody's following the same protocols, even though those are the rules that are in place and they're following the rules, but is there a concern that maybe the rules might not
Change.
be what they need to be?
I think that's something that we will continue to monitor. I know the league will continue to monitor as the science evolves. We dealt with a lot of that, quite frankly, last year. Daryl, so I think we're pretty accustomed to I would say not only the Browns, but the NFL is accustomed to be very adaptable, we'll adjust as necessary to make sure that everybody's as safe as possible.
Andrew, we've asked you many times about Baker and Nick Chubb and Denzel Ward. But just for the record, what are you thinking about Wyatt Teller and Ronnie Harrison, as they also enter?
Yeah, listen,
like Nick,
it's this the same thing I would say with the other guys, like good players, good people. Can't have enough of those guys in the locker room. Won't talk about any personal contract situation, but we certainly do value those guys.
Off that, Andrew.
Two more here. Is that exciting as a GM, or is it kind of hard because you have so many good players that are coming up? Is there excitement in that?
Those are always good problems to have, like as a GM, and it certainly does create challenges at certain points in the year, but that's part of the job. And again, like I said, those are good problems to have if you have as many good players as possible.
Do you think there's pressure on unvaccinated players? I'm not talking about your team specifically, Andrew, but do you think there's pressure on unvaccinated players to get vaccinated?
I can't speak to to other teams. Like, what we try and do is make sure that everybody has the information possible. We feel like we're in a really good spot, but to me, if guys are here, like, we're focused on them performing and putting their best foot forward.
Andrew, after not having it last year, do you consider the preseason a significant evaluation period for you?
It's always good to see young players fighting for roster spots under the lights in real game action. Practices are incredibly important. We're excited for our joint practices with the Giants here in a couple weeks as well. But it is always good to get some live game exposure as well. Yeah.
Andrew, to this point on the field, Baker and Odell kind of struggled with their efficiency together. What are some reasons why you think it'll be much better this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot goes into that. To be quite honest, look, again, new system, unique year, shortened off season. Both those guys are really good players. We think bringing Odell back can add a dimension to our offense. So they've worked together really well. At this early juncture in training camp. So we're excited to see what they do moving forward.
Hey Andrew, real quick. I've noticed something about you. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you seem to have a immense respect for the knowledge OGs or people that come before us have, and Bob Quinn, Case Keenum, and you were doing it last year. Where did you acquire that sense of respect for that, a person or a place? How did you pick that up?
I think when you mess up enough, you probably get a pretty good sense for people who've come forward. And that's the honest truth. When you look in earnest at your mistakes, you're like, all right, how could I have prevented that in the past, or how can I prevent that in the future? And sometimes it is like being a better listener and listen to people who have a bit more wisdom than me, and it's a big reason why I value that perspective.